Well, hello and welcome to the Access Services inaugural podcast of Strengthening Communities. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're excited to have a couple of guests with us today to talk about mental health and mental health services that are provided at Access. And also we have a guest, Shuja Moore from Do More Good, which is a nonprofit organization that undertakes a combination of projects to support restorative justice and crime prevention. So welcome today with us, Shu. And then we also have with us Cristina. You want to introduce yourself and explain a little bit of what you do here in Access?
Yes, so I am Cristina Mejia. I'm the Director of Justice-Related Services. We provide acute, intensive, blended case management services to individuals that are within the intersection of criminal justice and also mental illness. We serve a lot of individuals that have severe and persistent mental illness and try to help them with the reentry. I have case managers that are in the jail, and I also have community case managers that follow individuals in the community, connecting them with resources, whether that's SNAP, whether it's food, whether it's LIHEAP, whether it's mental health treatment, therapy, psychiatry, any type of recovery coaching, certified recovery specialist, certified peer specialist, the whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. So we work with them alongside with the individuals in helping them live a more fulfilled and successful life in the community versus incarceration.
Right.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you, Cristina, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. Shu, do you want to talk a little bit about Do More Good, what it is, and how you got going with that, and what you're about there in West Philadelphia?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me, and I'm so happy to be able to kick off this podcast. This is the first of many, many great episodes. I feel it. As you said, my name is Shuja Moore. I go by Shu often, and something that I'm really, really proud of is that I'm from West Philly. My family's been here since the 50s, and I come from a family of community advocates. My great-grandmother took care of the neighborhood. My grandmother did, and so did my parents. My dad worked for the local community association. My mother was a counselor for the school district. So it's in my blood to give back to the community and kind of wrap my arms around the community. Yeah. Despite that, I was a young knucklehead that went to the streets when I was, in my late teens and ended up going to prison for 12 years. And so I learned a lot on the inside, and I was committed not only to changing myself, but also being a leader within my community once I was released. And that's exactly what I did. I got out and I hit the ground running. And what I learned really quickly is if you're someone who can turn talking to action, you're going to get a lot of responsibility put on your plate.
Right.
know, and so people just start throwing things at me like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I was very passionate with trying to help assist my community. That turned into a nonprofit, Do More Good, a play on my last name, but also a production company, Do More Films, because one of the things that I saw was that narrative justice was missing, the full stories of people who come from the margins. And so essentially what I do, despite whatever entity, is I blend storytelling with community action so that we can really just have a better society.
Yeah, thanks. We were able to view the documentary Pardon Me, which was very powerful and also very beautifully done. So thank you so much. There's a lot in that short film that I had no idea about. So the idea that somebody who has a criminal record could apply to be pardoned from that. I just thought that was something that somebody else had to do on your behalf, and you had to be sort of lucky to find that person to be able to do that. So this was really compelling information for me. Do you want to talk just a little bit about just how that process works and what was important to you in the telling of that story? Absolutely,
and like you said, there were a lot of misperceptions around what does it take and what is the process to have your record clear, and is this something that is for you? Speaking as a black man, a lot of people from the inner city communities, black people, people of color, don't feel like the system is for them. And so this is a process that they wouldn't even pursue. But what happened with me was I won a fellowship when I was really struggling in my reentry and looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to win a fellowship with a legal organization based in Philly called Philadelphia Lawyers for Social Equity. And their main focus was record clearing in Philadelphia. They were focused on expungements, which is the last process in getting your record clear. But what they realized is that most people, before they could get an expungement, they needed a pardon first. And so they started to really build out a network of organizations that assisted people with filling out those applications. But they were struggling with telling that story and promoting it. And so I was able to turn that fellowship into an actual partnership because I had already started with film production. I had also been doing direct service work in the community. And so not only did I have a criminal record, I was assisting other people who were struggling and trying to access resources, and saw just how much we were restricted from fully participating in society, getting a mortgage, getting an apartment building, using services like Airbnb, getting a job at Uber, Lyft, Target. I mean, basic entry-level positions with a criminal record, you can be just totally denied. And so I was fully committed to kind of really telling a story about the need and making an economic argument for at some point, when can we fully exit the system so that I can grow and raise a family and be part of the community in a much more impactful way.
Yeah, one of the lines that struck me in the documentary was, when is enough enough? And like the idea that when people are released, they still are they're carrying this record that prohibits them from. It's a continuation of retribution or punishment. Absolutely. And it creates obstacles that don't let them really re-enter fully or continue or to be able to participate fully, as you described, in the community. What do you see the impact of that being?
And one thing I just want to note is, and you don't even have to do time. I mean, I think the majority of people who are arrested aren't necessarily going to prison. You know, those are the more extreme cases. But once you have even an arrest record, people can legally deny you things.
Right.
And knowing how the system really eats up a lot of communities of color, that's very impactful when we think about the type of society we live in, and us all wanting to, feel peace and be safe. And just have, a higher quality of life. Yeah. If a significant portion of people can't access the things that allow them to enhance their quality of life, what type of society do we really expect? And so that's why it was really important for me to really highlight that, hey, another thing, talking about narrative justice, the story around having a criminal record is always the extreme, the most heinous cases. The people that are looking to hurt you and rob you, that's what we see pushed in the media. Right. And so why would you want to give someone with a criminal record a second chance? Yeah. And most people are scared to be forthcoming about their record because they don't want that negative stereotype. Yeah. Right. And one of the things that I just realized was that we have to talk about it. We have to put it in your face, and we have to be willing to say, you may judge me for this, but I know who I am. I'm not the mistake I've made, the poor choice that I made, and what happened to, whatever I did, that was actually 20 years ago. Right. Right. I was a different person. Yeah. Absolutely. We are all 20 years ago, we all were different people. Right. And so society, we should have a mechanism that allows people who've made mistakes to kind of get back into the fold of the larger society. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, and one of the power, it does, and one of the powerful sentences, statements in the documentary was also, none of us wants to be judged by the worst day that we've had. Like that should not define who we are moving forward. All of us have had some bad days. Some of us get in more trouble for that than others. But we all have had days that we don't want to be identified by. Right. And I think that being stuck with that is sort of came out in that. I was also struck by the connection that was made between pardoning and the impact on the economy, the local economy. And you've said that in another moment. You've talked about the economic impact. So pardoning isn't just good. It's good for the person who gets pardoned, but it's really good for the whole community. So you do want to talk a little bit about that, like how does this process impact really the whole community for the better? Yeah, I mean, just look at your spending power and your earning potential. I think your earning potential is cut by 50% once you have a criminal record. And don't quote me on that. I mean, I'm not a statistician. I'm not an economist. So, you got to lean on the experts for the real numbers. But your earning potential is significantly lowered once you have a criminal record.
Yeah.
That's your ability to care for yourself, care for a family. We know rents are rising. We know inflation is rising. The economy's in a downturn. And if you can't get a job to really take care of yourself, pay your bills, and have some discretionary spending, how are you really expected to fully participate in society, let alone raise a family and make sure that the children that you have are properly educated? That's an issue.
Yeah.
Also, the tax revenue that we're leaving on the table because we're not allowing people to just have basic jobs. And it's not like we have. It's not like we don't have industries that need workers. We do.
Right.
We're just not even considering a significant portion of our society for those jobs because of the record. The record doesn't allow them to get the proper education or even make it through the hiring process.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, Cristina, a question. The folks that your program serves, that you guys work with, are folks who have had experience in the criminal justice system and also a lived experience with mental illness. So there's sort of this intersectional moment where two things that can make it hard for me to sort of get ahead in life are coming together in the same space. We know that the jail system is one of the biggest treatment providers of mental health services or providers of mental health services, and they're not designed to do that. You don't go to jail to receive mental health treatment. So, what's the impact on a person who is struggling with a lived experience of mental illness who finds themselves incarcerated?
The impact is very significant. These individuals also, like you said, the jail doesn't have the tools to be able to provide necessary services that the individual may need. For instance, individuals with severe mental illness, they need therapy, they need psychiatry, they need follow-up, they need all this support that the jail cannot provide. So I know that the jail does provide groups. However, it's not significant enough to be able to make an impact on the individual that is either going to be released on bail randomly or actually connected to resources within the community. Because I have had quite a few individuals that we serve. And I do have a case manager that goes into the jail to try and work with these individuals. Are randomly released. We don't know anything about it. They're out in the community, no resources, no support, no nothing. And then they end up back into the jail because they don't have anything that can help them live a sustained life in the community. So it makes it very difficult. But like Mark was saying, there aren't any supports that can necessarily help this population, specifically the severe and persistent mental illness individuals. There's no services, there's no support. They do have programs that do touch base and do assessments and cross off the boxes and check all the, things that they need to ask to be able to place them in certain areas within the jail. So if somebody has a severe mental illness, they're placed in certain areas within the jail. However, they have personal choice. So if they choose not to be medication compliant, there is nobody that's going in to advocate and have a conversation with them around, hey, do you know how this is impacting you? Do you want to have a conversation about how this could be better for you? They don't have that.
Yeah. So I think that I know that when a person who is experiencing a significant mental illness also becomes incarcerated or becomes arrested, becomes part of the criminal justice system, that they tend to be in jail longer. They tend to go back more quickly. And so there's just a thing that gets them stuck.
Yeah.
And so do you want to talk just a little bit about that, what you guys experience when you're trying to support people who are stuck, and then what maybe you do about that?
So this is really something that is difficult. A lot of times there's waiting lists.
Okay.
For residentials, there's waiting lists for connection to therapy, whether it's looking to get connected with a psychiatrist or an ACT team for wraparound services for medication management. There's always wait lists. So a lot of times, depending on the significance of the individual's mental health, they don't want to release the individual so that they're not successful within the community. They want to be able to set them up so that they have somewhere to go, and somebody can go meet with them at the house, like one of my case managers will meet with them in the community. However, because the wait lists are significant, we can't get somebody connected with housing. If they have certain charges, they don't qualify for certain residentials, which makes it even more difficult for them to be released from the jail.
So the people who need the most support can't get it because they're disqualified.
And the jail, we partner with the jail a lot. And we have multiple meetings to try and figure the best case scenario for each of these individuals, but there's such a lack of resources in the community that make it so difficult for these individuals to be successful within the community. The jail goes above and beyond to their best ability to be able to help these individuals get connected with services like myself. But there's only so much that we can also offer because, as we know, finances. A lot of us are grant funded, and we can only hire so many people to have a sustainable program. So the access to supports, even such as my program, is difficult for individuals that are just sitting, waiting to be able to have some type of hope.
Yeah, nice. And you just now used the word hope. And that was a theme also in the documentary. Evan, when he told his story, he described himself as a beacon of hope and talked a lot about how there's barriers, but really what happens inside of a person is that they start to lose hope. They don't have hope in their future. They don't have hope in the system that they want to help them sort of get a leg up. So do you want to talk just a little bit about hope and hopelessness and how that works, and then maybe you can talk about the same thing?
Yeah, a couple things kind of being triggered for me. First thing I want to say, love is the revolution, man. Love, it's all about love can change everything. And when I think about myself and some of the successes that I've been able to have, it's because I've never lacked love. My parents have always been in my life. They've always supported me. But a lot of people I was incarcerated with didn't have that support. When I look at how they went about their incarceration versus me, I was able to educate myself and lock in and focus, and I had a mission every day. Where some people, their mission was just to get enough money so that they could supplement their diet. They didn't have enough to eat.
Right.
And so there's a difference in your maturation and growth if you have those two different outlooks. So I really can't advocate enough for just how can we continue to just love on each other and support one another? Yeah. And then when I hear terms like mental health, to me that still has a negative connotation to it. I don't really understand what is mental health. And as one of the things that I experienced getting out was I started being real anxious after my release and dealing with anxiety. And had never experienced that before. I've never technically been diagnosed with anything, but I can tell you, I struggle with all type of different thoughts and feelings and reactions and emotions that I've never had to do, coming up. And I didn't know how to deal with all of that stuff. At the same time, I have the pressure of trying to build a life and reenter society and connect with family. And, these people have expectations of me. I have expectations of people. They're not being met. People are being disappointed in one another. And how do you deal with all of that? When I think of mental health, the first thing that comes in my mind are the most extreme cases. But I think, obviously can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of us just deal with basic things day to day, basic struggles.
Yes.
Am I going to meet this job deadline? That can negatively affect how you are in the house. Something's not going on well in a relationship. That can affect how you're performing at work. And so I really want to kind of unpack what is mental health, how should we be approaching mental health, what are some of red flags? How do we take time? How do we breathe? What's an okay response when you're feeling flustered and overwhelmed? Yep. How do we give each other grace and love, recognizing like, oh, they may be dealing with something right now.
Right.
I think mental health really we need to, as a society, really dig and unpack what is going on with us mentally, because a lot is being thrown at us, and there's an expectation that we should be all able to handle it. And the reality is a lot of this stuff is very difficult to handle.
Yeah. There's a lot of what gets called mental illness gets diagnosed sort of clinically, which is really a very understandable part of human experience that's just really hard. And we're all trying to sort of struggle through that human experience, but somewhere along the way, somebody picks up a diagnosis. And to your point, like there's lots of things that life creates in us that show up as anxiety or depression and that kind of thing. And also to your point, we need to have some grace around that and say, this really is more about what it means for us to live together as humans than trying to diagnose somebody and get a service for them. Although for some folks that might be important, but there's this whole other piece of how do we do life together. Do you want to talk a little bit about like just how all that works for you guys.
So I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit what she was sharing as far as like, we all live with mental health. Every single person on the face of the earth lives with mental health. I always go back to like when I had a loved one that I lost. My mentality, the anxiety, the depression around that period. And I just think that, like you said, it's not discussed enough. People aren't tuned into that enough. And it makes it so difficult to connect with individuals that maybe don't see eye to eye with maybe somebody who has a diagnosis versus someone who doesn't. Just because I don't have a mental health diagnosis doesn't mean that I don't live with mental health. I live with it every day. I manage my mental health every day, stress, anxiety every day. So I think that's something that's so important that needs to be highlighted and needs to be talked about, and people need to be educated because we do all live with mental health every single day. But for my individuals, sometimes you've made a great point, Shu, about individuals not having natural supports, not knowing what love is, right? And not having somebody that can go back home to hopefully hold their hand and say, hey, we'll get through this together. I'm going to help you. No, a lot of them are just released to homelessness.
Right.
And they don't have any type of natural supports, or family that are checked out and they say, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just can't do it anymore. So then supports like myself have to come in and try and love on somebody who doesn't know how to be loved, right? And trying to meet a gap that they don't have. And there's an individual that we serve that is a perfect example of this. No supports, no natural supports, and didn't want to meet or connect with anybody. And always said, like, get away from me, don't talk to me. But I have a case manager that showed up every single day, despite being told, leave me alone, get out of my face. But showed up every day. And then sooner or later, this person was like, where's this individual at? I need this individual. There is so much work that can be done to make a positive impact if we are willing to meet this person where they're at, which is why I love what Access stands for with strengthening communities, because we want to meet people where they're at and we want to help them learn you can live a fulfilled life. Let me walk alongside you, regardless of what you're facing, regardless of your forensic involvement, regardless of your mental health diagnosis. I'm going to meet you where you're at, right? But then again, we come into the community things that make it really difficult to be able to do that for these individuals because they have a criminal record, you know? When I think that these are the people that we should be opening our doors to, giving them a second chance to say, hey, I will help you. And there's going to be times, like, recovery is something that happens every day, regardless of what it is. We go through recovery every day. Whether you committed an extreme crime or something that was more minor, doesn't matter. But recovery is every day, but there's definitely a lack to open the doors and say, hey, let me help you. Let me see how we can make this work.
Yeah, could I jump in one more thing? I just want to say, to your point about hope, you know, that's why storytelling is so important to me. Because when we all get inspired, you know, by the stories we hear, you know, what we see, what we smell, what we taste. And so showing like an Evan to say, hey, I've walked this journey. I've made these mistakes and I've transformed my life. I pursued education. And even though I can't even get the job that I want, I found another way to be successful and take care of my family. That can inspire so many others to say, oh, you know what? Let me commit to my, you know, I see what it looks like if I stick to, you know, if I enforce or employ what I've learned on my recovery journey or my reentry journey or whatever transformation journey. If I see someone already successfully completed, it makes it that much easier for me to get through those hard days because I know what it looks like.
Yeah. So I was struck by listening to both of you and just talking about community. And this is the Strengthening Community podcast. So we're an organization that provides services in the community for the community. And so we are committed to that. You were also talking, Shu, about the fact that you had community around you. You had love. And that gave you that's where you were operating out of, and that's powerful. So I also know that Do More is really about creating community. So there's some indirect things where you just want to strengthen community because you know that when community is strong, then people do do better in it. And so, do you want to talk just a little bit about sort of how you want to influence, not only help people tell stories, not only just show, do this in film and narrative justice, but what are the other things that you're also involved in to just strengthen the community?
Yeah, for sure. It's like this, the saying goes, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
But the second piece of that is healed people heal people.
Yes.
And so, the more we invest in others and kind of help them help them heal and get themselves back together, what I wanted to embody was the same person who's capable of doing something wrong is the same person who's capable of doing, something right. Or the same person who's capable of hurting others is the same person who's capable of saving others. And so not only did I want to tell that story, I wanted to embody that within myself.
Right.
One of the things I was telling you about my legacy before is something I'm proud of. We've been in the same neighborhood. My great-grandmother bought a house. My grandmother bought a home. And I'm in one of those homes right now. That's generational wealth. That's legacy. And I wanted to honor that legacy by also helping the community. But again, I also wanted to embody how, an individual that was loved, that was healed, that was invested in can now help others. And so I do that in 3 ways. 2 things that I personally focus on is a community garden in the neighborhood right across the street over there, and a community playground that my great-grandmother actually helped establish.
Wow.
And so we're revitalizing that. That'll be done by July of this year. We're forming the garden committee, and we're about to start planting season soon. And so to me, that's more restorative. That's giving back.
Right.
That's planting things. That's feeding people. That's bringing community together to have a day of just working together and getting to know one another, especially as our communities become more and more diverse. But then in regards to more so crime prevention, one of my brothers, Tariq Moore, he has a group called Philly Safe.
Okay.
And it's a weekly young men's mentoring group.
Oh, nice.
And so we want to make sure that we help raise healthy adults and provide that love that may be lacking in a home or lacking in school or lacking in community, that we're also able to invest in our future in that way. And so, again, just feel really, really privileged to come from a family that always gives love, that allowed us to be raised with love, and that allowed us to continue to love people as we grow, into adults.
Yeah, it feels like there's a couple pieces coming together. One is offering hope to somebody. Maybe I've come out of prison and I don't feel like, I don't see a pathway forward, and so I don't have hope. And saying to me, I've been there, it gets better. You too can sort of get past this and move forward, which is really powerful. It's important. And then the other piece of it is, Mark, it's not just going to get better for you, but you're here for a purpose, and your purpose is really to offer what you have. You not only you are an asset to your community. That the community doesn't know it, and so there's some things that are in your way. These are big barriers, but really you're an asset to this community, and that's what you were made for. Yeah. There's love, and then there's love and action and grace with other parts of the community and it feels like all of those things are sort of coming together in what you're describing. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, you're good, Mark. I see why you host this.
Yeah, it is. It's very powerful. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Cristina. When how do you help instill hope with people who might not have it, and how do you? What are some things that the community can do to come alongside you guys as a service? Like there's a bandwidth you have, and we all live in community. We don't all just live as a recipient of a service. We're bigger than that as humans. And so, what are some things that the community can do to support a service that really wants to strengthen a person as they live in their community, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is opportunity.
Yeah.
Giving individuals the opportunity to live somewheres, giving individuals the opportunity to work somewheres, and not being hesitant to just throw them out there. Let them come and work at your place of employment. Let them come and stay in your residential programming. I love what you are doing in the community by having a garden, letting people partake in that and giving back to the community in that way. And I think that more opportunities in our surrounding counties to do that would be great.
Yeah.
Giving them the opportunity. just today I had a conversation with someone because I was looking to connect an individual with volunteer opportunity. And they have to have a background to be a companion to somebody in hospice. Like if they don't meet their background check, they can't sit with somebody and just be a companion for somebody who's in hospice, right? And I think that taking that away from somebody who wants to give back to someone that just needs that, like that hope, holding space for somebody who maybe doesn't have a loved one and not being able to provide that goes to show you like the community involvement, right? I know that sometimes there are things that are put in place for protection of like, because they're going to somebody's home, stuff like that. Like I understand that, right? But I think giving somebody the opportunity to just be a companion for somebody in hospice. Don't take that away from them because they have a background. Giving them that opportunity to grow and prove themselves that they have the opportunity to second chance. Like they can do this thing. Just open your door and give them the opportunity. And I think something that JRS does is we go with a person. So if you're hesitant about something, I know some of my leaders have met with different directors to kind of say, hey, we're here. Like, we're not going to abandon you, leave you completely. We are here to provide support to this individual that we're asking you to give an opportunity to.
Sort of a bridge.
Right, exactly.
You're bridging that moment until the other person can say, oh, this is okay.
Exactly.
This person does have value. I want this person because of what they have to offer.
So we've had these conversations and saying, hey, we're willing to step in that gap. We're willing to be that bridge, right, for this individual so that you can give them the opportunity. So I think that allowing us to have this conversation and kind of building education around what that can look like and what this individual is going through and how we can support is all we're asking. So to open a door.
I'm struck in what you said and what Shu had said earlier about just the importance of the narrative, the importance of the story. Who I am is not a diagnosis, and who I am is not a conviction that I have on my record. I'm much bigger than that. And people, to your point, Shu, people see that and they assume like the worst. They just fill in the blanks. They assume the worst things about a person because they see this label without even listening to or giving a person a chance to say this is who I am. And there's so many people. We saw those vignettes in the film. People who say I want to do something in my community. I made a mistake. I paid the penalty for that mistake. I'm back. I want to do something for my community. I actually am good at it. But there's things that get in the way, and it feels like when we think of ourselves as a community that needs to be whole, and we see people, we've left people out, that we do so to our own detriment as a community. We're not actually a whole community until we are giving people the room to use their gifts and their talents for the betterment of the community. And it seems to me, like to your point, that we don't do that because we have this idea of the needing retribution and needing to punish people without seeing them as just human beings who just need to move on from that.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I wanted to follow up on, when I hear the word hospice, I mean, it's just so near and dear to my heart. When I was incarcerated, one of the first ways that I was able to give back was I became a hospip worker. And,
oh wow!
You know, so I would go back into the medical facility of the institution and just spend time with the people who were sick, and it was a very, very endearing experience for me.
Sure.
I have friends who passed away in prison. It could be a very lonely, sad, depressing experience, and so that. Have someone come up there and just give you a little bit of hope and hang out with you and laugh with you. That is something that I feel so proud of. Nobody really knows about it except the people who were there with me, some of the other hospice workers. It's something that we just have camaraderie around. Like, man, wasn't that a special time of our lives when we gave love like that? But to your point about like being on the outside, I think, all of us here in existence right now are products of the history that we've just inherited, right? The world developed how the world developed, but now we're here. And how the world continues to develop is on us. You know, what we invest in, what we do, who we open our arms toward. And I think there's a lot of ways that you can help people who've been impacted by the system. But the first, I think, is just recognizing that you don't know them, you don't know what they've gone through, you don't know who they are, and just taking a moment to like, let me get to know you. Yeah. And you're different from me. I don't expect you to be like me. You don't look like me. You don't act like me. You're not going to talk like me. Right. But that doesn't mean that I still can't give you the respect and dignity of a human, and let and truly find where are those areas that we are alike and that we can connect on. And then I can identify how to properly invest in you if that's the choice that you choose to make. Because people who are in reentry, people who are dealing with mental health challenges, it's not a monolith. It's people from all type of spectrums. So just because you meet somebody who's formerly incarcerated doesn't mean that they're not intelligent, that they don't have resources, and that they're not capable of doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love that you actually brought to mind there is an individual that I know in Bucks County who works with different individuals in recovery, with recovery houses. And one of the things that this individual does that I love is give the opportunity to individuals that are in recovery to work at one of his places of employment, giving them the opportunity to prove themselves. And this individual meets with them where they're at, has heart-to-heart conversations with them. And I love and respect that because a lot of them don't have that. They don't have that hope for somebody to just sit with them, be a companion, and say, hey, you're going to get through this. I got you. Like,
I need
come
that.
On. I think we all do. I do too. But I love that. And, you were speaking about your experience of hospice. And I think if the community can kind of almost like big brother, big sister, be a mentor to these individuals that want an opportunity to improve their lives and show them. Maybe they didn't have anybody that educated them on what it is to pay a bill, what it is to write a check, what it is to manage your money, right? What it is to just have a social conversation and communicate with somebody.
Absolutely.
And I think that if there's individuals in the community that are open to that, being a mentor to somebody who didn't have one, that'd be great.
For sure. I mean, I could speak directly to that. Like I had to learn, all of that. I did 12 years. I went to prison at 22. So I didn't really know how to manage my life as an adult. Manage money as an adult, build a career, speak professionally, answer emails, create a spreadsheet. Like all of these things you got to learn in real time. And it is a barrier for many people who have not been able to, for whatever reason, invest in their development in that way. They may not even have been able to identify where their development is stagnant and where they need to invest in. And so I'm just agreeing with everything that you said, because these are directly the experiences I had to go through, fumble through, make mistakes on, feel embarrassed about, but still have the courage to continue to move forward, to try to get it right.
How can people follow what it is you're doing, and how can they get connected to, there's this film, and we got the insider capacity to view it. It was great, but we want to know how do we promote that so that other people can see this issue and how significant it is, and sort of participate on a community level to help people.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I need your help. I need support. I'm an indie filmmaker. I'm a startup community, engagement person. And the more people that I have just, speaking of the projects that we're working on, connecting us, contributing, following, supporting, volunteering, the farther we can go. All of what we do is really how to make society better. How to make people feel whole, how to make people feel loved, how to tell their stories. And so if you want to kind of tap into the movement that we have over here in West Philly, I say, you can follow me on any social media channel, Shuja Moore, that's ShujaMoore, using my first and my last name, not hiding from anybody. This is me. You can find me. And the film in particular, Pardon Me, we have a website, Pardons Now, like right now, Pardons Now, PARDONSNOW.org, to stay updated on the film. We will release it publicly at some point this year. We haven't done that yet because as an indie filmmaker, I had to make some money on it, and I made money on it by individually licensing it to colleges and universities and other nonprofit organizations. And so
we're connected to organizations like universities who are already saying, hey, we think you know about something, help us figure out how to get connected to that. So I think you're going to get support.
That's amazing. And I just want to, before I see we're about to probably close out, I really just want to say, thank you for the support, for uplifting this issue, for giving opportunities to people such as myself, it really means a lot. And the more that I'm able to grow and shine and accomplish, again, that is bringing inspiration and hope to so many others who, again, aren't ready to be forthcoming or still struggling, or still trying to get through. And my success is an example of what their success could look like, and even better at some point.
Considering you are the individual you are today, if you had to give any form of encouragement, what would you say to somebody else who wants to improve their lives and just make something bigger than what they think they can have? Because I think that you're a perfect example of what you can accomplish. And I think that there maybe was a drive behind you. What fueled your fire to get you to where you are today?
What fueled my fire was really a disappointment in myself. I disappointed myself, I disappointed my family, and I knew I was better than the circumstances that I was in when I was incarcerated. And so the first thing that fueled me was I got to get this right. You know, I can't even ever get it right, but I have to do something. I have to give back. I have to help. I have to show that the investment my parents made in me, like it's not this. The second thing, I don't want to go too deep, but I will also say a disappointment in communities of color, like where we are. You know, seeing so many people incarcerated, so many black men lost, ignorant, not having resources, not knowing how to, build a life for themselves that they could be proud of. Because a lot of people don't want to commit crimes. They don't want to do this stuff. But I call it lost. You know, people are making decisions, but I don't think they have all the information. They're making decisions before they have all the information. And so I was really concerned with, instead of blaming, because I could point at media and the TV shows and the movies that I don't like, but instead of complaining, I said, well, let me do what I can do. Let me put something out in the atmosphere to combat that. Wherever it goes, but at least I played my part. And lastly, I would say, I think I've done a lot of sitting with myself. And I think, you know, oftentimes we push that to the side because you don't see a direct result from that type of work of like, who am I? What do I really want to accomplish? How do I see myself? What do I believe about myself? And what are those negative thoughts that hold me back? How can I get rid of those negative thoughts? That's work that a lot of people, I think, try to avoid when that's the starting point. How do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? And then create a path to get there before you just start moving your wheels and doing things that aren't making you happy, and you start to feel depressed and sad and not know why.
Sort of having that sense about yourself. I'm a person. There's a lot to me. I've had some hard experiences and I have some labels attached to that. But who am I really on the inside? And who do I want to be? It feels like that's, as you said, that's that sort of feel like deep questions, but that really is a starting point that then gets you on a pathway.
I would start there, help somebody create, and there's a lot of things you could do with, what do they call those boards? Like, vision boards, you got mind maps, but really putting it in front of somebody, helping them create a version of themselves that they can feel proud of. And that's the direction that they could wake up and every morning it's like, this is where I want to go. And it helps fuel that passion when you wake up like, okay, this is what I'm working toward. That's why I'm in the warehouse, because I'm trying to get to the mansion. But you got to start here.
That sense of purpose and direction. And I think you've brought us sort of full circle back to, this is about humans helping humans. It's about all of us living in community, and we have a lot of shared human experience that we need to get better at talking about. And so thank you for you putting out there those stories and that narrative that is a positive one for folks to see.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned for future work. So hopefully people sign up, people tap in, because I'm on to the next project. So
for sure.
Stay tuned for the next documentary.
We'll stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.